She calls it the greatest cover-up in all of human history. No, it's not the Titanic, and it's not JFK, and it's not the USS Liberty. No, according to Karen Kingston, the biggest cover-up in human history is happening right now, right in front of our eyes. It's the explosion of the global nanotechnology industry. Karen says that globalist elites who control the health and pharma and tech industries have been advancing nanotech for decades, all while lying relentlessly about its very existence. But in the last 5 years, nanotech took a huge leap forward with the engineering of the COVID-19 virus and then its bioweapon injections. But according to Karen, despite how obvious it is, they just lie right to our faces. They just tell us, nanotech isn't real, you conspiracy theorist idiot. They tell us that even hundreds upon hundreds of industry documents already exist, clearly stating that COVID shots contain nanotechnology for the purposes of merging biological humans with digital nanotechnologies is all fake. You must be controlled opposition sent here to discredit the anti-vax movement. All the way back in 2000, the National Nanotechnology Initiative was launched. Every year, it gets more than $1 billion in taxpayer funding. Your money funding our own demise from organizations like the NIH and the Defense Department. Hundreds of peer-reviewed papers and proposed technologies have come out. In 2017, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health put out a 7-year safety plan for protecting workers who manufacture nanotech. In 2014, the FDA published loose guidelines on how to use nanotech in your food, in your cosmetics, in your medicine, in your supplements, even in the tobacco that you smoke or chew. Now, as we are clearly on the cusp of a revolution in transhumanism where nanotechnology is used for human-directed evolution, they all turn around and say, actually, nanotechnology just isn't real. Why will nobody else talk about nanotechnology?
If we name the weapon, then it's pretty easy to name the criminals, and I would start with Pfizer. There's no legislation to protect them. That's a big part of why people are denying the existence of nanotechnology. They said, well, we should regulate the industry. If we make an unsafe product, then consumers are going to be aware of it, and we can't be protected by government regulations if we harm consumers. So the buck stops with us. The buck stops with Pfizer. And nobody is willing to talk about this. Not one doctor, not one scientist, not one attorney.
Not one presidential candidate, not one alternative media host, not one mainstream media pundit. Nobody is willing to talk about nanotechnology, despite the fact that we have irrefutable, undeniable, microscopic imagery of nanotechnology inside of the vials that were manufactured and distributed by Pfizer.
Dr. Anil Mohasia has done a great job leading the nanotech investigation, but people aren't talking about the legal angle. The existence of nanotechnology has completely shattered any immunity that Pfizer and the manufacturers have. You cannot inject people with electromagnetic devices. This industry has been around, like you had said, for over 20 years, really booming, beginning in the year 2000. Revlon and Estee Lauder have invested over $500 million in patents alone. The studies that they did, whether or not it's safe, what do they say? Oh, we're not sure if it's safe or not yet. Another study that was just published in February of this year, the uncontrolled use of nanoparticle technology has caused irreparable damage to all biological and animal life forms on the planet by disrupting the microflora, the microbiota. It's being released across the planet. And I think if consumers knew that there was nanotechnology in their cosmetics, in their food supply, in the soil, in the air, and the purposes of it, the exposure for the last 20 years, was so that our bodies would get used to it and not have a severe rejection or allergic reaction to it. So by the time they were ready to inject human beings with the nanotechnology, we wouldn't have such a overt reaction to rejecting it from our body.